The title is Crossing the Line, Why Last Mile Matters. And of course, we're seeing incredible urbanization happening in the world, and we're projected to see, I believe it's 70% of the world's population living in urban centers. And of course, that cities then face incredible challenges around urban mobility and transportation, and in particular that last mile of that mobility challenge, right? Because it's so critical, and yet poses challenges around both efficiency and cost. And so to discuss some of the challenges there and some of the solutions we're seeing around last mile mobility and delivery, I'm very pleased to invite up to the stage Pankaj Munjal, Chairman of HMC Hero Motors Company. Pankaj? All right. So Pankaj, thank you so much for joining us. So the context, I thought maybe we'd start with the context first around urbanization and then move a little bit more to defining last mile and how HMC is working on that. So maybe could you sort of give us a sense of how urbanization over the past decades, of course, HMC is a longstanding mobility company. What are some of the trends we've been seeing around urbanization in the past couple of decades, and how are those affecting sort of city planning and mobility?
Okay, thank you very much. I love this subject. I live in Delhi. It's a big city. It's congested, and home to work takes me 1 hour 40 minutes or something like that. But if you want a pizza and you press the button on the app, it's there in 30 minutes. So Delhi growing, thriving, everything. But the last mile guy comes on his two-wheeler, three-wheeler, small light electric vehicle, and it happens. So my group is focused onto cycles, e-cycles, then the automotive. So we are focused onto this last mile, connectivity. I want to give another example for this last mile, which also cuts the economy and the equity, like the different stature of the society. I went to a village for a wedding. Rajasthan's a beautiful place, and we went to a village, and village means a village. Like it's not like Europe, it's a village. And you had to wear the band galas, and you have to wear a pajama, that pant down below. And my wife forgot to put that. So when I went for that wedding, I said, okay, please take it out. And there was no pant to wear. I said, this will be embarrassing, it's tough. And I'm in a small village. And what do we get in an Indian village? So one guy told me, oh, take a taxi, go there, go to a smaller village. And I went there, scared, will I get something and will I be ready for the evening? And I find a shop. The trouser that I bought for 60 euros in the city, worth equivalent rupees, was there for 6. So the point I make is that the slow-moving stock moved from the big cities to the small cities, but the wheel is moving. That's again the last mile connectivity. So my group is focused. We are the world's largest into this, and we will now build this further.
And so how do you define? It is literally the last mile? Like how do you define last mile connectivity? How do you think about it?
I think last mile is a moment of truth. So big ships get the cars from India, China to whatever, India and the Far East to Europe. But the last mile, when the single vehicle is delivered or the single pizza is delivered, that last mile is the truth. That is the value. And financially also, it's got gravitas. It's very expensive. So if you look at the cost and the time and the traffic and the growing cities, we all read about the big cities like Delhi. If you park the cars bumper to bumper, they'll be longer than the roads. And every day, 16,000 more cars are being sold. So what's going to happen to these cities? It's scary. Please don't even think, it's very scary. So we have to look at these models. We have to. There's no way out.
How has it changed in, say, the past 10 years? What did the last mile delivery sort of look like 10 years ago versus what it looks like today?
So to me, Amsterdam has done very well. When you come to the city, you find these cycling tracks, and you find those big vehicles that carry cargo and all. They've also got access to the cycling track. So this is what a city should look like. There's not too much traffic, and these cycling tracks are fast. They keep moving, and people are moving, and they have a big smile, unlike the car guys.
And what about how is it sort of different in places like Amsterdam or say London versus India? right? Obviously, different levels of urbanization happening. What, are we seeing sort of same trends around last mile delivery, or how do those contexts differ?
So I want to share that I spent half my time in London and half my time in Delhi. And we go to villages in India, they are different. And I go to villages over here in London, they're like cities. So there's a lot of migration happening. So the people from the villages come to urban. So the big cities are really becoming mega. 15 million people, 20 million people, and growing. So last mile has to change. There is no way we can move like this. So metros have come up. But I'm a strong believer cycle will be a way forward. On the road, you'll find more and more cycles, more and more e-cycles. We have a factory in Germany. We build very expensive e-bikes. It's called H&F. It's a very nice German engineering. I will recommend to please try it. And they have a customer, like, the customers earlier used to buy a house after marriage, they'd buy a car. Now they don't buy a house. They don't buy a car. Rent a house, asset light, and that's how you go. So we see the change. All these markets grow. That's a genetic change happening.
Yeah.
Genetic code is changing within.
What about, though, some of the challenges, right? The sort of challenges around ensuring that last mile delivery is sustainable?
So I'm pushing last mile, but I have an automotive group also, where we make gearboxes, then chassis for cars, and BMWs, braking systems. But I feel the car markets in the big cities would slow down. It's too expensive to ride a car. It's not your car creating the jam, it is the next guy's car creating the traffic. So the cars would be a little bit under pressure because, again, back to India, we make 5 million cars a year, and most of them are sold in the cities. So what's going to happen? It's really scary. So the changing part that I recommend, that I again come back to is last mile will turn, more of technology, safety gadgets, anti-collision, anti-theft, those kind of things will come up and make it better and safer.
What about some of the infrastructure or cost challenges? Are there, with the sort of transformation at a city level to a more sustainable last mile delivery, does that require certain infrastructure that cities need to have? Does that require upfront investment?
Massive. It requires massive. So I met our Prime Minister, and we were giving him a presentation. So we had Mr. Toyota and Honda and everybody there. And then he calls up and says, what do you want? Like, he's a very direct kind of manager. And we need cycling tracks. We need safe cycling tracks like the ones that we have here. And it's massive expenditure. You need to cut the roads and plan and, plan all the crossings. How will you cross the traffic? So the work is on. Things are moving in that regard. For sure.
And so you mentioned Prime Minister. Which Prime Minister was that?
Modi.
Okay. To what extent are you, because I'm assuming you have to then navigate, obviously you work in different markets, right? Not just India, but you have to navigate both the national governments, the sort of urban city governments. Who do you focus on? Who can make the biggest impact to ensure that a transition to last mile sustainable delivery is taking place?
So I'd like to compliment the French. I was with Mr. Macron some time back, and he'd called a few people, brainstorming and all. So they have made like a 15-minute city. So he went to the board and he said, hey, this is no trucks, no buses, no cars over here. This is car free. So that's clear. That's getting through. So you do find a place to breathe and, be out healthy. So Europeans are making a good change. You got the weather, you're very lucky. It's very hot in India.
But do you find, so in that example again, so you think the national politicians, you sort of need to go to the national governments. I guess they can make a quicker change versus having to deal with at the city level?
It's got to, water flows from the top. So they are now long-term plans. So you need budgets and time and all that is required.
What about some of the more innovative solutions that we're seeing around last mile? What are the sort of main components of making sure that last mile is sustainable? Is it e-bikes? We've heard drones. Is that sort of fanciful, or do you see that coming on in the horizon? Will that be sustainable?
We used to see movies with the VTOL, vertical takeoff or land planes. So the plane will go up, it'll go there. And so we used to see it in movies 10 years ago, and I'm proud to share that we now make those very gearboxes for those planes. So all that is real. What was a dream sometime back. And I think drones will come. I'm a strong believer drones will come much faster than what we can dream of. We met a person and he's made a drone which can go around the whole globe on the same charge. And whatever, solar charging and other charging systems. They will come, they have to.
And when
is the question?
Okay, so you do think drones will come. What about on the ground, right? But what's going to happen there? What kind of innovations are we going to see? Obviously, we've seen e-bikes sort of really rise in popularity. What else are we going to see there in the next 5 to 10 years, you said?
So e-cycle is a big gadget. So we have apps on the e-cycle. Heart rate can be monitored. You can control your heart rate in various ways. There's safety gadgets, like I mentioned, anti-collision, anti-accidents and all. So a cycle looks simple, but it solves big problems. This 10-kilo vehicle changes the world.
Right, that's where obviously Hero Group started out.
And I'm proud to say we are the world's largest in cycles and motorcycles.
So you think you sort of come back full circle in some way?
Yes.
What about just looking again towards the future, right? And obviously, I think a number of businesses in the audience are thinking probably about the last mile of their delivery, right, and their supply chains. What do you think is needed to ensure that we can make some real progress on sustainable mobility, but with the last mile in particular?
So the new thing in the world is called VAS, Vehicle as a Service. So when you buy a vehicle, when these Deliveroo's and the other people need the vehicles to now deliver, so that's the new way of selling. Making a car, making a two-wheeler is fine. I mean, that's one part of the story. But now post-sale, that is where the edge is coming up. So vehicle as a service is the new way to look at it. You need standby vehicle, you need parts when they're down, you need the delivery in time. So that is where now our focus is.
What about sort of consumer, maybe just before we wrap up, what about sort of consumer like patterns of behavior? There was an article in The Economist this week about actually the sort of changing sort of consumer behaviors in India around much more likely to order things, single products even. Is that going to be sustainable? Is that put more pressure on companies if people are just ordering one or two products at a time? Or do we need to somehow think about changing consumer behavior at that point as well?
Back home, I was sitting, and my wife has barely used the apps, and she uses it for phone and WhatsApp and all. And we got this new company, Blinkit. They would now give you at your doorsteps anything. So she's on the phone ordering every time, everything on this. Hey, fun, 15 minutes it is over here. So, I mean, these are the kind of things that are now changing our world. Surely.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Well, so I think clearly, sustainable mobility is, I think, still one of the biggest challenges we face in terms of transitioning to net zero is one of the biggest contributors to greenhouse gases. Urbanization that we're seeing is going to be continuing to increase, particularly in places like India, and obviously that poses a lot of challenges for city planning, and that last mile delivery is critical. But I think some really interesting sort of insights around how we're sort of coming back to where we started with the importance of cycles and to reduce traffic congestion, but also some other innovations. So, Mr. Munjal, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks to you.
And